I had just stepped out of the station. My luggage was stolen. A kind woman hurried over to tell me my bag had been taken, but I just smiled and told her. They'd return it very soon. The thief hadn't even boarded the bus. He started mocking the situation. He had no idea what trouble he was in. They opened the bag, and their smiles instantly froze. Because inside were a bunch of military medals. They laughed and said, "Who would be dumb enough to fake something like this?" But then they pulled out a file folder, and when they opened it, their faces changed completely. Just then, a helicopter roared overhead. Before they could react, the van slammed on its brakes. 3 pickup trucks had blocked the road, each one filled with elite soldiers. The thieves trembled and couldn't even speak clearly. The van door was yanked open. They were dragged out like chickens. My men were ready to enforce battlefield discipline on the spot. I walked over slowly and said calmly to let it go. I didn't want to make a big scene this time. I hadn't been home in years. I just wanted to reunite with my family and friends. I was a national hero. Even the head of state had to show me respect. I took back my luggage and hurried toward home. My heart was filled with excitement. Images of family reunion played in my mind. Because of my special identity all these years, my family thought I had died on the battlefield. But when I reached the doorstep, I heard a conversation inside. Sending that useless guy to the army was the best decision we ever made. Otherwise, we'd never have become a wealthy family. My father's voice was cold and sharp. I froze at the door. I had imagined our reunion countless times, but never thought the reality would be so cruel. Then I heard my fiance's voice. Thank God I never registered the marriage back then. Otherwise, I wouldn't have the good life I have today. After the news of my death spread, the mayor promoted my brother to police chief. What they didn't know was that I had arranged it all behind the scenes. I stood at the door in tears. I remembered how years ago our family business was struggling. My father told me to enlist. He said it would help us get a loan. I agreed without hesitation. At the time, my fiancé even promised to marry me when I returned. Now I finally saw those promises were just jokes. Suddenly my men reported that my brother and ex-fiancé were getting married tomorrow. They had overheard everything and asked if I wanted them permanently blacklisted. I raised my hand and said no, then added calmly, "Isn't the mayor throwing me a celebration tomorrow?" My celebration will take place at my brother's wedding. Inside the house, they were still laughing and chatting. I pushed the door open and walked in. They were all stunned. My father stammered and asked, "Weren't you already dead?" I gave a slight smile. Their faces were filled with panic and dread, because as long as I was alive, their pensions and glory would vanish. I asked coldly if my being alive was now a problem for them. My father stayed silent. He knew I had heard everything. My ex-fiancé sneered and told me to leave. Better to have died out there. I looked at her and asked, "Didn't she once promise to wait for me?" Now she was marrying my brother. She laughed and said, "I wasn't as good as him." My father pulled out a check, told me to write any amount and leave. When I didn't react, he grabbed it back and wrote $2,000. Shoved it into my hand to spend. Even my mother begged me with tears to go. I stared at their ugly faces and asked if they still saw me as their son. My brother jumped in and said, "I was never part of the family anymore." I silently tore the check to pieces and coldly declared, "From now on we are finished." Then I turned and walked away. My father smashed a wine glass in rage, cursed